Hey YouTube, today I'm going to teach you how to play the Settlers of Catan. Okay, let's get started. These are all the components that should come in your Settlers of Catan game. There should be a rule book, 6 frame pieces, 4 player reference cards and the longest road and largest army cards, 4 sets of player pieces in red, white, orange, and blue. Each player set should contain the following: 4 cities, which are these, 5 settlements, which are these, and 15 roads, which looks like sticks. There should also be 19 terrain hexes, 4 wood, 4 field, 4 pasture, 3 mountain, 3 clay pit, and 1 desert. Stacks of resource cards for brick, wood, ore, wheat, and sheep, and the deck of development cards. 18 numbered chits, numbered from 2 to 12, 9 harbor pieces, 2 dice, and the robber. Now you're going to want to get your 6 frame pieces and arrange them in a hexagon, making sure that all of the numbers connect. For example, 3 connects to 3, 4 connects to 4, and so on. Then you're going to want to get your 19 terrain hexes and shuffle them all up, and then you're going to want to start dealing them into spots on the board until the entire hexagon has been filled with hexes. After you're done dealing out the 19 terrain hexes, you're going to want to get your 18 numbers, shuffle them up, and put 1 number on every single hex except for the desert. The desert, you put the robber on. When you're done dealing out the numbers, your board should look something like this. Also, an important note, make sure that there are no 6s and 8s next to each other on the board. If you need to, move the numbers around until they're all mixed up and there are no 6s and 8s next to each other anywhere on the board. Otherwise, the game would be completely unfair. If you want to play with an even more random setup, take out the 9 harbor pieces, shuffle them, and put them on the printed harbors on the outside of the board. Now go ahead and set up the resource cards, the longest road and largest army card. Go ahead and shuffle the deck of development cards and give each player his or her pieces, which will include their building cost reference card and their player pieces. Set the dice beside the board, you won't need them for a little bit. For this tutorial, I'm only going to be using 3 players, red, blue, and orange. So after you decide who goes first, let's just say it's red. Red is going to take a settlement and a road. And then they're going to look at the board and they're going to decide what would be a good place to put their first settlement. Now, you're going to want to place settlements near spots that have good numbers on them. And what I mean by this, on every turn, you're going to roll dice. For example, 5. Let's say red had a settlement here, and I guess it didn't really matter where his road goes. Let's say red had a settlement there. You see, a 5 was rolled, and they have a settlement next to a 5. That 5 is a mountain. Mountains produce ore. See how the colors match up? So red will get an ore, and you put it in his hand. Okay? Now let's say red somehow has 2 settlements here. He would get double, because 1 for here and 1 for there. After the first player places their first settlement, the next player would place a settlement. So let's just say blue goes there and goes down here. And then let's just say, I don't know, let's say orange would be stupid and place their settlement right there. After everyone has placed their first settlement, it's time to place the second settlement. To determine who places the second settlement, you go backwards. So if it would go red, blue, orange to decide who places the first settlement, it would go orange, blue, red to decide who places the second settlement. So, orange would place something, I don't know, let's just say he places it right there, and he decides to go this way, and then blue would place his second settlement, so he would, let's say he would want to place it here. Now, this would be illegal. You are not allowed to place a building that is 1 away from any other building, yours or an opponent's. So this right here, that would be illegal. You cannot place it here. So you'd have to decide, okay, let's place it somewhere else. So blue would decide, I don't know, place it up here, I guess. Seems like a good spot for him. And then he'll go out this way. And then red would place his second settlement, and let's just say places it right here. Now after everyone has placed their second settlement, you get resources depending on where you place your second settlement. So red placed his second settlement on the 10 wood, 9 ore, and 11 sheep. So he would get a wood, an ore, and a sheep to start with. Blue placed it on an 8 wheat, a 9 ore, and a 4 sheep, so he would get wheat, ore, and sheep to start with. And orange placed it on a 6, this is a 6, placed it on a 6 wood, and 11 sheep, and another 11 sheep. So he would get 1 wood and 2 sheep to start the game. Okay, so after everyone placed their settlement, the first player rolls the dice for resource production. You do this at the beginning of every turn. You roll dice, you get resources, and then you can build and trade, and then you're done. So let's just say it's red's turn. Red rolls an 8. Okay, so blue is next to an 8. Even though blue did not roll the dice, he would get a wheat anyway because he has a settlement next to an 8. So blue would get a wheat. And no one else would get anything because there is no one else with a settlement next to this 8 right here. Red has a road next to it, but you have to have a building next to it. So, after rolling the dice, red looks at his hand and he says, ooh, I'll tell you what, I'm 1 wheat away from buying a development card. So, one thing you're allowed to do after you roll the dice for resource production is you're allowed to trade with other players. So, red knows that blue just got a wheat from resource roll, so he says to blue, I will give you 1 wood for 1 wheat. Blue says, sure, I could use some wood. So they trade it, and now red has enough resources, or the right resources rather, to buy a development card. So you'd say, I'm going to buy a development card. He would cash in his resources, he would draw a development card face down and put it into his hand. So most development cards are knights. Some development cards are special abilities, like road building, and some cards simply give you a victory point. A victory point, what's that? Victory points are the things that you need to win the game Settlers of Catan. You need 10 points to win the game. Now, you get points for buildings, like settlements and cities, for special cards like the longest road and largest army, and like I mentioned before, victory point cards from the development card deck. Settlements are worth 1 victory point, so that means everybody starts off with 2 victory points right off the bat. So settlements are worth 1 victory point. Cities are worth 2 victory points. The longest road and largest army cards are worth 2 victory points respectively. And victory point cards from the development deck are worth 1 victory point apiece. You need 10 points to win, and as soon as you get 10 points, you win. Okay, so now that everyone knows how to win Settlers of Catan, let's go ahead and continue with a sample of Blue's turn. So Blue is going to roll the dice. 7. Okay, let's see here. 10, 9, 8, 6, 4, 9. What? There's no 7 on the board. Of course there's no 7 on the board. That's because whenever you roll a 7, you get to move this, which is the robber, as I explained before. You get to move him and place him on a hex. So let's just say blue, let's just say blue really doesn't like red. So let's just say he puts it right there. So here's what, so you move the robber, then you get to steal a card from someone's hand at random. Now, development cards don't count. You cannot steal a development card with the robber. You're just not allowed. So in this case, blue does not get to steal anything from red. However, let's say a 10 was rolled. Whenever the robber is standing on a hex, that hex does not produce resources until the robber is moved. So let's say a 10 would be rolled, red would not get wood because the robber is standing there. So you move when you roll a 7, you move the robber, you steal a card, and if you have more than 7 cards in your hand, now I'm not saying 7, I'm saying more than 7, 8 and up. If you have 8 or more cards in your hand, you have to get rid of half your cards rounded down. Down, okay? So that's all that happens when you roll a 7. No one gets resources, you roll the robber, steal a card, and discard. Alright, so now it's a later stage in the game. It's Red's turn. He rolled his dice, he got his resources, and now he looks at his hand. He has this. So now I'm going to teach you about building. Okay? So, the building costs are listed on your card. To build a road, you need a wood and a brick. So let's do that now, just for example. So Red has a wood and a brick, so he's going to take that wood and brick, he's going to place that in the bank, and he's going to say, I'm going to build a road. Now, you have to build a road that's already connected to another road you have, or connected to a settlement that you have. So, let's just say he builds a road up there. He also notices he has enough resources left over to build a settlement, so he's going to do that as well. So he discards his resources and announces, I'm going to build a settlement. So he takes the settlement, this little thing, right here, and he decides where he wants to place it. Now let's say he wants to place it here, because it's near an 8. Well, like I said before, you are not allowed to place a settlement that is one away from any other settlement or city, yours or an opponent, so he's not allowed to place his settlement there. Could, however, place a settlement here because it is 2 road lengths away from his other settlement, so that would be a valid place to put his settlement. Okay, so now it's Blue's turn. So Blue rolls his dice, gets his resources, and this is what he has. He looks at his hand and he says, hey, I have enough resources to build a city. So that's what he's going to do. He's going to take his 2 wheat and 3 ore, put it in the bank, and take a city out of his stash. Now, let's say for example, Blue had some roads going along this way. He says, oh, for some reason, I like that 10, 12, and 3, even though they're crap numbers. He's like, okay, I'm going to place my city there. But he can't. You are not allowed... Cities aren't built in the same way settlements are. Cities are built as an upgrade to settlements. And what I mean is this. When you build a city, it replaces your settlement. And you take your settlement, you put it back in your pile. Cities are good for 2 ways. 1, they're worth 2 victory points over the 1 victory point a settlement would normally give you. So what you're doing is getting rid of the 1 victory point settlement and upgrading it into a 2 victory point city, thereby giving you an extra victory point. And another reason that cities are good is, let's say an 8 was rolled. Instead of getting 1 resource for a settlement, you would get, you guessed it, 2 of that resource. And he would put it in his hand. So that is why cities are good. Okay. So now it's an even later stage in the game, and this is what the board looks like. Red has upgraded to a city, built another settlement, and even extended his road network a little bit. Blue has extended his road network a little bit and built a settlement. And Orange upgraded to a city and just built a road there. So now let's say it is Blue's turn. So Blue rolls his dice, gets his resources, and he looks at his hand. He decides he wants to build a road. So he goes ahead and builds his road. And let's just say he builds his road right here because he wants... he builds a road right here because he wants to get near this port, which I'll explain later. So he builds his road there. Wait a minute. Hey, that's his 5th road. You know what happens when you build your 5th road? The first person to build their 5th road gets the longest road card. It's worth 2 victory points. So that's 1/5 of the points that you need to get to 10. So he takes his longest road and he places it right there. He's like, ooh, I got the longest road. But this is where the fun part comes in my opinion, of Settlers of Catan. Let's say it's Red's turn. Red has a road that is 4 segments long. So he decides, I'm willing to build 2 roads. So he takes out 2 roads, and let's just say he builds them over here, effectively cutting off Blue from at least going in this direction, because you're not allowed to build through roads and stuff like that. But now Red has a road that is 6 roads long. That is longer than Blue's longest, air quotes, road. So Red would take the longest road and put it in front of him because he now has the longest road on the board. So, on a later turn, blue says, I'm going to build another road. So, blue builds his 6th road. Guess what? He does not get the longest road back from red, because to get the longest road back, you have to beat the other player's road. You do not tie them, you beat them. So, blue does not get the longest road back, and red keeps it for now. And then the game would probably go back and forth, red and blue fighting over the longest road. But I'm going to tell you more about other stuff later. Alright, now I'm going to explain how development cards work. So here's how development cards work. There are 3 types of development cards, which I will go over. So, let's say it's red's turn. He picks up the dice, but he decides, you know what, I want to do something else first. So here's what he does. He's going to flip up one of his knight development cards and say, I'm going to play a knight. What do knights do? Knights let you move the robber before the dice are rolled. So he looks at blue's position and he says, well, you need brick to build a road, don't you? So he's going to put the robber on that 6 brick. And he gets to steal a card from blue just like any other time. The only thing that's different is that when you play a knight, you don't discard if you have more than 8 cards, because that would just be unfair. So he goes ahead and plays his knight, moves it, and steals, and then he rolls. Now let's say on subsequent turns, red plays a knight and another knight. Let's just say he moves it there and back again for no apparent reason. Guess what? That's his 3rd knight. So red would also get the largest army card. The largest army card works like the longest road card. It starts whenever a person has 3 knights and it can be stolen off of other players. Okay, a thing I forgot to mention, knight cards can only be played before you roll the dice, not after you roll the dice. So now it's blue's turn, so blue rolls his dice and gets his resources. Now he looks at his development cards and he has 3 special development cards. One is road building, one is monopoly, and one is year of plenty. Now, let's say he wants to play this road building card. He takes it and he puts it in the development card discard pile. Road building lets you build 2 free roads. So, he takes 2 roads and he builds them. So he's going to build 2 like that. Guess what? His road is now longer than red, so he takes the longest road back. So that's how the road building card works. There are 2 more. Year of plenty, if you decide to play that, you get to take any 2 resources from the bank. So let's say he takes a wood and a brick, and just to make sure that red cannot get the longest road off him, he decides to build another road. So he's going to build a road this way, down there, effectively making his road, I think, 3 longer than red, something like that. And then the last special card he can play is Monopoly. What Monopoly does is you name one of the 5 resources in the game. Every other player that is playing the game has to give you every single card of that resource. So he looks and he says, well, he wouldn't know what orange has, but let's just say he says sheep. So orange would be forced to give blue all of his sheep. And that's pretty bad for orange because he could have bought a development card next turn, but whatever. And so blue would get all his sheep, and then he decides, okay, I'm done. Okay, now it's really late in the game. Orange managed to upgrade his other settlement into a city. And he has 3 knights now, but red has 3 knights, so he would not take the largest army. But now it's the start of orange's turn. He decides, I'm going to play my 4th knight, thereby beating red's army and taking the largest army away from him. And then let's just say he moves something there and steals a card. So now, orange has 2 points from largest army, 2 points from the city, 2 points from this city. That makes 6 total points. He's 4 points away from victory. Now, let me explain the other type of development card to you, which are victory point cards. Victory point cards, as I said, give you a victory point, but you can't just play them whenever you feel like it. You can only play victory point cards whenever you have enough victory points to make you win. So right now, red has 6, or not red, orange has 6 points. 6, and he has 4 victory point cards in his hand. Well, 6 plus 4 is 10. So if he were to play all 4 victory point cards, so let's see, I have 2, 4, 6, and then he would be like 7, 8, 9, 10. And then he would dance and cheer because that would probably never happen ever because there are only 5 victory point cards in the deck. So he just defied the odds there. But let's say that happens. Orange would then win the game because he has 10 victory points, and everyone else would be sad and pissed off at him because they had the game locked up, basically. But that's about it. So like I said, victory point cards can only be played when you have enough victory points to win. Okay. Okay. So now there's a couple other little rules I forgot to mention. So, early in the game, Red built this settlement right next to this little boat with a question mark on it and a 3-for-1. What does that mean? Well, let me explain to you. Let's say that Blue had 4 sheep in his hand. Okay. He decides, I really want some wood, for example, to get for, I don't know, building another road. At any time in the game, you're allowed to trade in 4 of the exact same type of resource to the bank for 1 of another. They all have to be the same, and you would be really stupid to trade in 4 sheep for a sheep. So you probably wouldn't want to do that. So you can trade in 4 of the same resource for 1 of a different resource. Now, these little boats are called harbors. Harbors help in the sense that you can improve that ratio to 3-for-1 or even 2-for-1 for a specific resource. So let's say that this is Red's hand. He has 3 brick. He decides, hey, I'm going to trade in this 3 brick for a wood because I want to take the road back off of Blue. He's allowed to do this because you're allowed to trade in, with this 3-to-1 harbor, you're allowed to trade in 3 of anything for 1 of something. Okay? And then there's one last example I want to do. So let's just say Blue had a settlement right here. Okay. And let's just say he had, I don't know, a bunch of sheep. Okay. So you'll notice his settlement is next to a harbor. This harbor has a picture of a sheep on it, and it has a 2-1 ratio. What that means is now at any point in the game, when it's his turn, Blue is allowed to trade in 2 sheep, just 2, for 1 of something. So let's say he takes wood, and then let's say he trades in another 2 sheep for brick and builds a road, but it wouldn't really matter. But that's all I wanted to tell you about was harbors. So there are 2 types of harbors. There are harbors that let you trade 3 of anything for 1 of something, and then there are harbors that let you trade in 2 of a specific resource for 1 of anything else. That's basically all there is to Settlers of Catan. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. That's about it. See ya. Bye. So now that we have the components down, you're going to want to get your 6 frame pieces and arrange them in a hexagon, making sure to connect the number, oh shit, I messed up. Instead of getting 1 wheat for that 8, he would be getting 2. He would get 2, whenever you have a, like whenever the dice are rolled, and you have a building, or you have a city net, oh my god damn it!